Good morning. Good morning to each of you. I am Dr. Corrine Johnson, your certified marriage counselor and relationship coach. Good morning to each of you. Thank you all so much for tuning in and joining with me on this morning. We want to welcome you to Teach Me How to Love You morning devotions. And this is where we take the time out each Monday morning to empower couples in their marriage. And so on this morning, we're going to be talking about what happens when there is a lack of attention in relationships, because a lot of times in marriage, we think that when our spouse desires attention from us, sometimes we take that and we say, oh, well, that may just be a sign of neediness or a valid sign, that a person should not ignore. You gotta make sure that you're not just thinking that your spouse is just needy, but when your spouse is vying for attention, you got to make sure that you don't ignore the signs that they are giving you, because attention is important in marriage. And it doesn't matter, whether we are busy or hectic in our lives, or we're targeting that promotion that we so want our job, or we have a conflict in schedule, whatever it may be. You got to know the importance of connection and attention. And when you realize the importance of it, you're going to find a way to make sure that giving your spouse attention and connecting with them on a more intimate level, you're going to find out that when it's prioritized, that you'll find a way to do it. You'll find a way to work it into your schedule, because attention is so important in marital relationships. We married the person we love not just because we fell in love with them, but also because we've seen ourselves growing old with that person. And so along with our vows, we believe that we've already found a partner that is gonna be willing to work, through things, through the thick and the thin. And you're thinking that, okay, I'm marrying this person and they would never let me feel lonely or alone. But what if, you find yourself in a position to where you're yearning to get close to your spouse? You want that attention, you want that connectiveness, but your spouse is not really discerning that that is what you need. And so sometimes when it comes to our husbands, they may make the mistake, the lack of time and attention in a relationship as overly dramatic. Some husbands do, because as women, it's just nature that we like to have that time with our husbands. We like to feel like we're connected, we like that attention, right? So like women, we love attention, and sometimes we can't go a day without it. But that's not entirely all the way true, because sometimes all of us crave attention one way or the other. Our husbands crave it, but sometimes they crave it when they want it. But when it comes down to us as women, we as wives, we really crave that attention. So we seldom see our husbands complaining about, my wife doesn't pay attention to me. But men also need attention, because it is also a way to show how much we love them. And even though they may not necessarily express it the way that we do, our husbands want that attention as well. A lot of times we think that it's just us as women, that we just got to feel like we need that attention and that connectedness. But our husbands actually do too, even if they do not express it. Sometimes you have to discern, the things that they're saying to let you know, hey, I want you to come spend some time, because I'm an entrepreneur. And so I'm in my office a lot at home. And so, if my husband if he's in there watching television and he comes back here to the office and he says, well, baby, what are you doing? What you working on now? I've been with my husband long enough to read between the lines to know that means that I know you may be working on something, but you want to come on watch this movie with me, or you want to come that, he kind of does it in code. But I've been with him long enough to where I know that if he comes back here, which he seldom does he interrupt me when I'm doing my work, but if he comes back here and kind of peeks over the computer and it's like, what you working on? What you doing? I know that means that he wants to connect, that's time that he wants to spend with me, whether it's on the couch cuddled up watching a movie or us going for a walk or something. But I know that, I can discern that that's what he wants. And so to put it in a more straightforward form this morning, if we love our spouse, we're going to find a way to show them how much they mean to us. And one of the easiest ways to do this is by paying attention to them. And so love and attention are directly proportional to each other and are extremely important for the survival of your marriage. And so what are the effects this morning of lack of attention in your marriage? Well, if one partner is not getting enough attention from the other partner, it can cause a chain reaction and even lead to bigger conflicts in the relationship. So don't be, perplexed. And it's nothing that can't be saved, but you don't want to get to that point. You don't want to get to the point to where, because you're so busy, working on your career, and you're so busy putting everybody else ahead of your spouse, that it leads to bigger conflict in the relationship. And even though, it may not cause it to be to the point to where, your husband is talking about divorce or a wife is talking about divorce, but we're going to talk about much later how it leads to infidelity. When your spouse doesn't feel like you're paying enough attention to them or making them your priority. And so I just want to give you some effects this morning. If one partner will fail to pay full attention, and attention not just with their partner, but with the relationship itself. And so the first effect this morning of not paying attention to your spouse and being more connected to them is losing the connection. Because it is the apparent effect that if you stop giving your spouse the love and attention that they deserve, you're going to drift further and further apart from one another. And so the usual late night talks have now become a once a month thing. And then soon it's going to turn into nothing. You're not going to be doing it at all. And so you're sleeping in the same bed and living in the same house, but you now drift away from one another and you actually become strangers instead of becoming closer to one another. So does it have to come to that point to where you have to hear your spouse ask, why do I crave attention? The attention and love that should always be present in your relationship. And so before you lose that special bond, learn to give undivided attention to your relationship. The next effect of not paying attention to your spouse and their needs is being insensitive. Because lack of attention in marriage will make us insensitive in so many ways. In time, it will get to a point to where you will no longer see your partner's needs at all. The bond that you need to work on, and the family that you're trying to build, you lose sight of those things. And no matter what the reasons may be this morning, you have that, showing up in your marriage because you're not paying attention to your spouse. You're so engrossed in doing other things and prioritizing other things that you have failed to pay attention. So being insensitive is one of the effects of not paying attention to your spouse. The third thing is poor self-esteem and self-worth. If your spouse get used to being ignored, chances are he or she will have very poor self-worth and self-esteem. It's going to significantly affect your spouse more than you could ever understand. They will start to think that they're not getting enough attention in the relationship, maybe because they're not worth it. And that feeling will definitely not only break your spouse, but it's going to break the relationship that you all have. And so you got to know that, when it comes down to ignoring your spouse, it's making them feel a particular type of way. And so the next thing that takes place when we're not giving the attention to our spouse that they desire is that there's a lack of intimacy. Because if you ignore your spouse, then most likely there is also no intimacy involved in your relationship. Is it because you no longer love them? Or is it because he or she no longer seems to be beautiful or handsome? Or are you just honestly too busy? You've gotten to a place to where you prioritize so many other things and you put your marriage on the back burner. And so when you do not show your spouse the attention that they so crave for, there's a lack of intimacy that begins to take place. And then the next thing that takes place when you're not showing or giving your spouse the attention that they desire is they're going to be vulnerable to infidelity. A person who has no attention from their spouse is most likely to react in different ways. They may seem sad or maybe even depressed at first, but the lack of attention in your relationship, what it does is it opens up new doors for people to make their move on your spouse. Because a lot of times, when infidelity hits our marriages, we get upset with the woman or with the other or vice versa, with the husbands that are watching, you get upset with the other man. But no, you need to be upset within yourself because of infidelity. Some people, they just have it in them to be that way. But for the most part, what I see, especially as a marriage counselor, when I'm doing counseling sessions, either the husband or the wife will say, my wife stopped paying attention to me. My wife stopped giving me sex. She would get into bed at night and she was just not interested in fulfilling my needs. And so that other spouse, because they have been pushed to the side for so long, it opens up the door for things when we do that, because your spouse got to go to work. Your spouse got to go outside of the house. And so when there is a need that has not been fulfilled over a long period of time, you know how the enemy works. He'll allow your spouse to go to work and start talking to the opposite sex about what you're not doing at home to fulfill their needs. And so they open up a door for the enemy to come in and cause them to be vulnerable to infidelity. So we want to make sure that we're giving our spouse the attention that we need. For the wives that are listening, you want to make sure that you're giving your husband the sex that they need. Yeah, sure, we know that our husbands are wired differently than what we are because they want sex all the time. That's just how they're wired. They may want it more than we want it, but that's how God wired them. And so instead of turning them down and saying all the time, well, I'm tired, I got a headache, I got this, I got that, go take you a shower and just, get yourself together, wind down a little bit and prepare yourself rather than saying no all the time. Because once again, when there is a lack of attention, and I'm being real on today, in your marital relationship, it opens up new doors for people to make a move on your spouse. Even when your spouse was a person that was trustworthy, even when your spouse was somebody that had no intentions of ever cheating on you. When there is a lack of attention and sex and needs being fulfilled, it opens up the door for the enemy to come in and cause them to do things that normally they would not do. And so it is a possibility that we should keep in mind that a person, when your spouse does not feel wanted, when they do not feel like you desire to spend time with them, and after you've rejected them for so long, it's a possibility that they're going to be prone to look to other people to fulfill those needs that they're not getting at home. And so we want to make sure that we don't push our spouses out there to be vulnerable to infidelity, because we're not prioritizing what we need to be able to spend time with our mates. And so I want to give you some signs on this morning to help you identify when your partner, your spouse, needs attention. And because we have to pay close attention to our spouse's behavior towards us. And chances are they're already sending you signals that they need your undivided attention in the relationship. And a lot of couples, they split up because either the wife is tired of begging for attention from the husband, or the husband is not getting enough attention in the relationship. But I want you to be able to save your marriage by recognizing if your spouse behaves like someone who wants attention. And so the first thing to help you identify when your spouse needs attention is your partner wants to be around you all the time. Your spouse wants to just be under you all the time. If your spouse is always finding a reason to be around you every time and never leaves you alone, you should know that the lack of attention is causing the fear of abandonment. It's causing the fear of abandonment. Because a lot of times, when our mates are not spending that adequate time with us, the enemy get your brain to going, and they're thinking, well, what's going on? Why aren't they spending time with me? And then once again, that fear of abandonment kicks in. Well, maybe he or she wants somebody else. Maybe he's thinking about leaving or whatever. So you got to look for the clues and make sure that you're discerning enough to pay attention. The next thing is their behavior has turned passive aggressive. Making passive aggressive digs is a clear of a hidden anger and lack of attention in your relationship. Your partner may be unhappy with the constant thought of, why do I crave attention when the other person doesn't? So it's going to be helpful if you pay more attention to your spouse to make sure that they are happy. You want to make sure that they're happy within the relationship. The next clue to let you know that your spouse, is desiring to spend time with you is they are spending more time on the phone. So we cannot deny that most modern couples deal with their problems by neglecting them for as long as possible, right? So if your spouse feels ignored by you, he or she might rely on technology to fulfill that void. So some people choose to watch movies. Some people engage more in social media, trying to find some comfort talking to other people, over these social media platforms because they feel supported on those particular platforms. And so if your spouse spends more time on their phone then you need to pay more attention to them to keep the relationship stronger. The next thing is they have stopped sharing their needs. And so suppose you think that your spouse has suddenly turned into a one-person army. They think they can handle anything and everything in life, and they are constantly refusing to take any support from you. Well, it's a clear signal that there is a lack of attention in that relationship. They need you to be there more than you are, and they have stopped hoping that you would understand. So it's time to realize that they deserve the attention that they are demanding. The next thing is they are not interested in getting intimate. When a person doesn't get the attention that they deserve, they feel unhappy and unwanted. And so therefore they detach. There's a detachment that makes them look at you as a stranger and face trouble getting intimate or having sex. And so it's a clear sign that you need to spend some couple quality time to reconnect with your spouse. Because once you've been rejected for so many times, and I see this very prevalent when it comes down to wives. More so, I hear the husband saying that, my wife, she just doesn't, she don't want to have sex. I hear a lot of husbands saying that. And so we got to make sure that we are doing everything that we have to do, even if it means sitting down, having that conversation with your husband and saying, listen, sweetheart, I know that you want more sex than what I'm giving you. However, we both work a full-time job. But when you come home, you go sit down on the couch and you wait on me to prepare dinner. And then I got to wash the dishes, and I got to help the children with their homework. And I got to do all of this other stuff while you chilling on the couch. And so when we get to bed, you ready, but I'm exhausted. And so maybe, I think that maybe you if you don't mind, when you get off from work, if I'm in the kitchen cooking, can you go ahead on and start, with homework with the kids, so I won't have to do that when I'm done? Or maybe even when I'm done cooking, can you do the dishes? And that way, it's kind of evening out. And then that way, by the time we get to bed, I won't be so exhausted, and then I'll be ready. Even if it means having that conversation so you all can do, an equal amount of chores and helping one another and being a team, so that sex and that intimacy can begin to take place. And so wives, I want you to become strategic, because God wired men that way. That's how they express their love to us. That's how they give their love to us. When they're having sex with us, that's the way that they're expressing their love and giving their love to us. And so when we don't give them what they need, they feel rejected. They feel like, well, she'll never want to have sex. But it opens up a door, is what I'm trying to get you to understand. It opens up a door. And so now you've gone 2, 3, 4, 5 months and y'all haven't had any sex. And so he go to work, and Sheila is in the break room, and they start conversating. And he's telling her, he opens up about what's going on at home. What you think Sheila gonna do? She gonna do everything that she can to try to support him in that area where that need is not being met. And then the next thing you know, infidelity takes place. And so we want to make sure that we are supplying the need. The next reason how you can identify when your spouse is lacking that attention that they need is they seem more distant. Some people love to be extra clingy, right? And mostly that's us as wives. We're the one that's extra clingy, and around our partner, we want to be clingy. We want to be around our spouse all the time. And so some of us tend to make a distance with our spouse when we feel neglected. So you want to try to understand that, they were around you because they felt wanted and needed. And now they think that, you don't enjoy their company anymore. And so therefore your spouse becomes distant because they're waiting for you to come and say, well, baby, what's wrong? And then that'll open up a door for you to say, I want you to spend time with me. I want us to do something together. Can we spend time together? And so I want to discuss 6 causes of lack of attention in marriage, because it is almost impossible to believe that people who are in a marriage want to hurt one another, right? So some of them may have a toxic nature, but most of them are doing so because they are unaware of the facts that are causing the lack of attention in their relationship. And so most of the time, people do not recognize the core of the problem. While many couples want to solve any dispute in their marital relationship, but sadly, they don't know where the problem lies. And so 6 causes of lack of attention. Well, the first one could be that your partner is too comfortable around you. You know, sometimes when people feel accepted and comfortable, they tend to forget the basic rules of relationships, and that is expressing themselves. And so when we start a relationship, we put every effort in our bones to make it work. And once it gets comfortable, we forget to show that affection. We forget to show that attention. And it is one of the most important causes of lack of attention in relationship. The next cause of lack of attention is imbalance of personal professional life. And yes, it is essential to focus on your career growth by all means, social responsibility, and other societal aspects. But still, some of us forget to focus in on our personal lives while doing so. And so you may not realize that you have gotten so busy in your work and social life that you have started to neglect, possibly the most important person in your life, and that's your spouse. And so this kind of behavior is certainly going to make your partner feel a lack of love and attention. So no matter how successful, you're trying to be, you can't put your husband or your wife on the back burner. You got to keep a balance there. You got to make sure that there's balance. The next cause of lack of attention in marriage is your partner is feeling insecure. So when people don't feel good about themselves, they project their insecurity in so many different ways. It would help if you could find out that their self-esteem is low or they're feeling underconfident. So that is one of the reasons why many times they don't express their feelings or pay attention to you. You need to talk to your spouse if you feel like they're insecure about themselves, and start to work on your marital relationship as soon as you possibly can. And so the feeling of insecurity can lead them to care less about expressing their affection. The next thing is your partner's mental health may be poor. Your partner's mental health may be poor because an emotional and mental disturbance may not seem like an issue initially, but it could ruin your marital relationship over time. You got to look for signs like depression, post-traumatic disorder, anxiety, OCD. If any of these signs of mental health issues are visible, the best thing that you can do is talk about it. And not only just talk about it, but get some professional help as well. And be sure to let your spouse know that, hey, I'm there for you. I'm rooting for you, and help them get some professional help so that you can begin to thrive within your marriage. The next cause of lack of attention in your marital relationship is your partner has a different personality. Your partner has a different personality. Maybe you're the one, you know, that loves to express their feelings. Maybe you're the one that loves to talk all the time, you know, and share everything, you know, or make sure that your spouse knows that you're head over heels in love with them, right? But some spouses are not good at that. It's not a part of their personality, and they do not feel comfortable expressing their affection. It doesn't mean that they don't love you, but they cannot provide undivided attention in the relationship to you because they don't know how to do it. And a lot of times we're saying, you know, well, why can't you show me attention? Why can't you show me love? Why can't you do this? And why can't, well, they can't give you what they do not have. You know, all of us come from different backgrounds. All of us grew up in different home environments. You know, maybe you as the wife grew up in a home environment where you saw love, you saw your parents communicate, you saw them doing things together and spending time, whereas your husband may have grown up in an environment where sharing, you know, emotional or talking to their parents was not, you know, warranted, and they didn't have an example of communication and what a good marriage looked like or was supposed to be like. And so now, you know, you're trying to tell them, well, you know, I just want you to do this and I just want you to do that. Well, guess what? They can't give you what they don't have. And you can continue to demand it, but if they don't have it, they can't give it to you. So that's the time that you want to sit down and kind of talk about some expectations, you know. Even though you may be the talkative person, you know, you want to let them know that, hey, you know, you can tell me anything, you can talk to me, you want to sit down and talk about some expectations at that time. But the difference of personalities can cause the feeling of lack of attention in a relationship, when basically what it is not necessarily that they don't want to spend time with you. It's the fact that they don't even know how to express themselves. And so what does it mean to be attentive in a relationship? Well, if you want to know how to be more attentive, avoid conflicts, growing apart, and resentment of your spouse, then you must be an attentive spouse from the start. But you can start as soon as you realize that you're lacking in that area. And so there are so many ways that you can revive your relationship and be attentive. For starters, you can start listening to your spouse more than you do. Understand what they mean and ask questions about it. It shows that you are interested in what they are telling you and that you feel more affection. Ask them about their day. Ask them how are they feeling. How's your job going? Ask questions. You know, all of these questions is going to make them feel loved, and it's going to fill up a space in your relationship. Asking your spouse, you know, about their personal and professional life is the best way to be more attentive in the relationship. And so as we get ready to close, I want to give you 4 ways to give attention to your spouse. Because if you think that you're not giving the attention your partner, your spouse needs, or that they're begging for, and it's ruining your relationship, you know, you got to learn how to work harder in that area to fulfill what they're begging for. Because if you don't start giving your spouse that attention, they're going to soon be distant. And then you both are going to begin to feel the lack of attention in the relationship. And so some ways that, you know, can help guide you to giving your spouse the attention that they need is to understand that it's a conscious and continuous effort. When the sparks starts to fade away in your marital relationship, people begin to look away from their spouse and pay attention to different things. So you got to understand that a strong relationship needs undivided attention from both of you. And to achieve that, you need to pay attention to your spouse every single day. The second way to make sure that you are giving your spouse the attention that they need maybe plan a trip together. Sometimes because, y'all so busy with jobs and children and church and everything else, your schedule can sometimes lead to a problem when it comes down to lack of attention in the relationship. So if you think that you want to make your spouse feel special but don't have enough time, plan a trip. Spend some alone time together, just the two of you, undivided attention together. And if you know that financially that you may not be able to plan a 3 or 4 day getaway, go somewhere locally for one day. Get outside of your home environment, go to a fancy hotel and get a babysitter to come in with the children, and you all just spend that time together, reconnecting and reviving the relationship. If you can't afford the hotel, get your grandparents or whoever to get the children outside of the house and do something at home. But the key thing is to plan undisturbed quality time together. The next thing that you can do to give your husband or wife that attention that they so beg for is to make decisions together. Sometimes, in life, you can make somebody feel, like, I'm looking for a word. I don't want to use the wrong word. I'll come back to it. If you begin to change your everyday routine and start doing things together, it's gonna break, that wedge that you all have formed between one another. It's gonna break that distance when you make the conscious decision to shift your routine in such a way that you all start doing things together. And somebody out there saying, well, I ain't got time for all that. Yes, you do. Because if you all sit down to eat a meal together, that's quality time together for you all to talk. Ask him about his day. Ask him, whatever it is that, at that table. When you all lay down at night, me and my husband, we do pillow talk every single night. We lay on that pillow and we're going to talk and laugh every single night. You have to make time for it. You got to start with making everyday decisions together, and you will find that you both are going to end up doing almost everything together. And so the next thing that you have to do to make your spouse, to be more attentive to your spouse, is to understand their grievances. Because it may seem like your spouse is constantly nagging you, but you need to understand their feelings too. It would be best, if you dug deep into why they're doing this and understand that they are already feeling a lack of attention from your side. And if you dismiss their issues, it's only going to make things worse. And so you want to make sure that you are doing all of these things to make sure that you're becoming aware of that your spouse needs that attention. And so now, on the other hand, some of you all may say, well, I'm the one that's experiencing this. So tell me 3 ways on how I can get my spouse's attention. Well, the first way you can get it is don't give up just yet. Don't give up on your spouse. Be mindful about your method. If your spouse is busy, you might want to ask them, for their free time or to talk. Don't demand it. Instead, try to understand your spouse. The most common reason people choose to ignore their spouse is that they try to nag them, which is not going to help. And the women and the wives, I'm here to tell you, nagging is not going to change anything. So you want to make sure that you avoid that. The next way to get your partner's attention is to make them feel valued. Make them feel valued. If you think it's not enough, pour yourself into the relationship a little bit more. Cook special meals, give your wife a massage, and do different things like that. Make them feel valued. Build them up every day with your actions and what you say. And so the next thing is, and the last thing is to seek professional help. If both of you have specific issues to address, then you need to consider asking for professional help. It may save, both of you all a lot of time, and the results is going to be excellent. Now, seeking help to keep your relationship is never something that you should be ashamed of. It's something to be rather proud of, because that means that both of you see the need to work on saving the relationship. And so if this is you and you need that professional help, I am a certified marriage counselor and relationship coach. I offer all different kinds of counseling services for married couples. And so if this is you and you need help, reach out to me and let me know, and I will get you the information that you need to get started, because we want to have successful marriages. And sometimes, in order, after you've exhausted all of everything, sometimes that professional help is what you need to get you back on the right track. So lack of attention this morning in relationships is becoming a common problem today, especially when we are busy, and not only busy, but stressed out. So we got to make sure that we pay attention to our spouse, because love, attention, and respect is what's going to make your relationship be stronger. And so on this morning, I pray that this session has been a blessing to your marriage. I pray that as I have given you all some information this morning, I pray that that you all will take everything that I have given you this morning and start putting it into practice within your marriage, so you can have a marriage that's not just surviving, but you want to make sure that you have a marriage that is thriving. That's my motto behind what I do with my Teach Me How to Love You Global Marriage Ministry, is to empower couples to have a thriving marriage and not just one that's surviving. So on this morning, thank you all so much for tuning in and joining with me on this morning. I pray that you will have a great day, and I pray that you will begin to show your spouse that attention that they so desperately crave for. So God bless you on today. Go forth on today, and remember to show love, show respect, and make sure that you are valuing your spouse. God bless you, and have a great day.